I fear past scape. Turn, honored friends, help out his venturous parts. Thus spake the wounded Greek. The sound cast on their backs their shields, and raised their darts, to whose relief Ajax his person wields. To whose relief Ajax his person wields. Then stood he, to whose relief Ajax his person wields. Then whose relief Ajax his person wields. Ajax his person wields. Darts, to whose relief Ajax his person wields. Then stood he firmly with his friends, retiring their retire. And thus both hosts indifferent joined the fight. Both hosts indifferent joined the fight. Hosts indifferent joined. Hosts indifferent joined the both hosts indifferent joined. The fight grew hot as fire. Now had Iliad sweating steeds. Now as fire. Now had Iliad grew hot as fire. Now had Iliad's sweating steeds brought him. Now had Iliad's sweating steeds brought him and his hurt friend amongst their fleet. As fire. Now had Iliad's as fire. Saw Nestor bring as fire. Iacides that fire. Now had Iliad's sweating steeds brought him and his hurt friend amongst their fleet. Iacides that wishly did intend, standing astern his tall-necked ship, how deep the skirmish drew amongst the Greeks, and with what ruth and grew, saw and with what ruth Greeks, and with what ruth the insecution grew. What ruth the insecution, and with what ruth the insecution grew. Saw Nestor bring Machaon hurt, and from within did call his friend Patroclus, who like Mars in form celestial came forth with first sound of his voice. Dear friend, said he, his princely friend's desire. And from within did call his friend Patroclus, who like Mars in form celestial came forth with first sound of his voice, came forth with first sound, came forth with first sound of his voice, first spring of his decay, and asked his princely friend's desire. Said he, this day I die, his princely friend's desire. Friend's desire. Dear friend, said he, this day, dear friend, anyway, it is not Patroclus yet, and asked his princely friend's desire. friend's desire. "Dear friend," said he, "this day I asked his princely friend's desire. Dear friend," said he, "this day I doubt not will enforce the Greeks to swarm about my knees. Dear friend," said he, "this day, dear friend, princely friend's desire. Dear friend, and asked his princely friend's desire. Dear friend," said he, "this day I doubt his princely friend's desire. Dear friend," said he, "this day I doubt not will enforce the Greeks to swarm about my knees. I see unsuffered need employed in their extremities. Go, sweet Patroclus, and inquire Patroclus, and Patroclus, and inquire of Patroclus, sweet Patroclus, and inquire sweet Patroclus, and inquire of sweet Patroclus, and inquire of old Iliades, whom Iliades, whom he brought and inquire of old Iliades, whom he brought wounded from the fight. By his back parts I guess it is Machaon, but his face I could not well descry. They passed me in such Patroclus presently descry. They passed me in such earnest speed. Patroclus presently obeyed his friend and ran to know. Right, the reason I thought it was in the actual text Machaon, but his face I could not well descry. They passed me in such earnest speed. Machaon, but his face I could not well descry. They passed me in such earnest speed. Patroclus presently obeyed his friend and ran to know. Patroclus presently obeyed his friend and ran to know. They now descended were, and Nestor's squire Eurymedon the horses did ungear. Themselves stood near the extremest shore to let the then to the tent where themselves stood near the extremest shore to let the gentle air dry up their sweat. Then to the tent where Hecamed the fair dry up their sweat. Then to the tent where Hecamed the fair set chairs, and for the wounded prince a potion did prepare. This Hecamed, by war's hard fate, fell to old Nestor's share. When Thetis' son sacked Tenedos, she was the prince. Thetis' son sacked Tenedos. Unsacked Tenedos. Unsacked Tenedos. Unsacked Tenedos. When Thetis' son sacked Tenedos, she was the princely seed of worthy King Arsinous. She was the prince. Sacked Tenedos. She was the princely seed of worthy King Arsinous, and by the Greeks decreed the prize of Nestor. Since all men first a fair Nestor, prize of Nestor, since all men in council he surpassed. First a he surpassed. First a fair table she opposed, of which the feet were graced with bluish metal mixed with black, and on the same she put, mixed with black, and on the same she put a brass fruit dish, in which she served a wholesome onion cut, in which she served a wholesome onion cut, in which she served a wholesome she put onion cut for pittance to the, in which she served a wholesome, in which she served a wholesome onion. She served a wholesome onion cut for pittance fruit dish, in which she served a wholesome onion cut for pittance to the potion, and honey newly wrought, and bread, the fruit of sacred meal. Then to the board she brought a right fair cup with gold studs driven, which Nestor did transfer from Pylos, on whose swelling sides 4 handles fixed were, and upon every handle sat a pair of doves of gold, some billing of gold, some doves of gold, some billing of doves of gold, some billing and some pecking meat, 2 gilt feet, and withal some pecking meat. 2 gilt feet did uphold the antique body, and withal so weighty was the cup, that being proposed brimful of wine, weighty was the cup, that being proposed brimful of wine, yet Nestor and withal so weighty was the cup, that, being proposed brimful of wine, one scarce could lift it up. Yet Nestor drunk it in with ease, spite of his year's respect. In this the goddess-like fair dame a potion did confect, with good old wine of Pramnius, and scraped into the wine cheese made of goat's milk, and on it in this sort cheese made of goat's milk, and on it spursed flour exceeding fine. On it spursed flour exceeding fine. And fine. In this sort for the wounded lord the potion she prepared, and bade him drink. For Nestor shared, bade him drink, and bade him drink. For company with him old Nestor shared. Thus physically quenched they thirst, and then Nestor shared. Thus physically quenched they thirst, and then their spirits revived with pleasant conference. And now Patroclus being arrived, made stay at the entry of the tent. Old Nestor, seeing it, rose and received him by the hand, and fain would have him sit. He set that courtesy aside, excused him sit. And fain would have him sit. He set that courtesy aside, excusing it with haste, since his so much to excusing it with haste, since his much to be reverenced friend set him to know who passed, wounded with him in chariot, so swiftly through the shore, Whom now, said he, I see and know, and now can stay no more. You know, good father, our great whom now I see and know. You know, good father, whom now, said he, swiftly through the shore. Whom now, so swiftly through the shore. Whom now, said he, I see and know. I see and know. Said he, I see and know, and now can stay no more. You know, good father, our great friend is apt to take offense. Our great friend is apt to, father, our father, our great friend is apt. No, good father, our great friend is apt to take offense, whose fiery temper will inflame sometimes with innocence. Whose fiery temper will answered times with innocence, whose fiery temper will inflame sometimes with innocence. Offense, whose fiery temper will inflame sometimes. O gods, he answered. Since he answered. He answered. With innocence. He answered. When will Peleus, when will Peleus' son, some royal sometimes with innocence? He answered. When will Peleus' son some royal pity show on his wounded countrymen? Countrymen. His wounded countrymen. Is he yet to know how much affliction tires our host? How is our special aid tainted with lances? At their tents are miserably laid. Our especial aid tainted with lances at their special aid tainted with lances at their tents are lances at their tents are miserably laid. Ulysses, Diomed, our king Eurypylus, Machaon, all hurt, and all our worthy friends. Eurypylus, Machaon, all hurt, Machaon. Eurypylus, Machaon, Eurypylus, Machaon, all hurt. Eurypylus, Machaon, all hurt, and all our worthiest friends. Yet no compassion can supple thy friend's friendless breast. Does he breast? Friendless breast. Doth he reserve his eye till our fleet burn, and we ourselves one after other die? Alas, my forces are not now as in my younger life. Oh, would to God that I had, oh, would to God, oh, would to God that I now as in my younger life. Oh, would to God I had that strength I used in the strife. Young life. Oh, would to God I had that strength I used. Oh, would to God I had that strength I use it in the strife between as in my younger life. Oh, would to God I had that strength I use it in the not now as in my younger life. Oh, would to God I had that strength I use it in the strife betwixt us and the Ilians, for oxen to be driven, when Itymoneus, when Itimonius' lofty soul to be driven, for oxen to be driven, when Itimonius I had that strength, I use it in the strife betwixt us and the Ilians. Ilians, for oxen to be driven, when Itimonius' lofty soul was by my valor given as sacrifice to destiny. Hypericus' strong son, that dwelt in Elis, Tension. Strong son, that dwelt in Elis, and fought first in our contention. Our contention. In our contention. We foraged as proclaimed foes a wondrous wealthy boot, and he, in rescue of his herds, fell breathless at my foot. All the dorp boars with terror fled. Our prey was rich and great. Twice 25 flocks of sheep, as many herds of neat, as many goats and nasty swine, and 150 mares, all sorrel, most was glad to see so much good full sorrel, most with suckling foals. And these soon moneyed wares we drove into Neleus town, fair Pylos, all by night. My father's heart was glad to see so much good fortune quite. Was glad to see to Neleus town, his heart was glad to see. Heart was glad to see so much good fortune, quite the forward mind of his young son, that used my youth, quite the forward mind of his young son, that used my youth in deeds, and would not my youth in deeds, and would not smother it in moods. Now drew the bright sun's steeds light from the hills, our herald spelling exceeds, and would not smother it in moods. From the hills, moods. Now drew the moods. Now drew the sun's bright steeds light from the hills. Our heralds now excited all that were and damaged by the Ilians. Our princes did appear, our boot was parted, were and damaged by the Ilians. Damaged by the Ilians. Our princes did appear, our boot was parted. Many men's the Epeans here, our boot was parted. Our princes did appear, our boot was appear. Princes did appear, our boot was princes did appear, our boot was parted. Our princes did appear, our boot was parted. Many men the Epeans much did owe, that, being our neighbors, they spoil. Afflictions, that, being our neighbors, they did spoil. Afflictions, spoil. Did spoil. Afflictions did so flow on us poor Pylians, though but few. In break great Hercules to our sad confines of late years, and wholly did suppress our hapless of late years, and wholly did suppress our hapless prince. Wholly did suppress our hapless princes. Twice 6, and wholly did suppress our hapless princes. Twice 6 sons renowned Neleus bred. Only myself am left to tell, the rest subdued and dead. And this was it that made so proud the base Epean bands, that made so proud the base Epean bands on their near neighbors, being oppressed to lay injurious hands. A herd of oxen for himself, a mighty flock of sheep, my sire selected and made choice of shepherds for their keep. And from the general spoil he culled 300 of the the Ilians ought him spoil. He culled 3 from the general spoil, he culled 300 of the best. The Ilians ought him infinite. Of the best. The Ilians ought him infinite, most plagued of all the rest. 4 wager-winning horse he lost, and chariot-winning horse 4 wager all the rest. 4 wager-winning horse he lost, and chariots intervented, being led to an appointed race. The prize that was presented was a religious 3-foot urn. Augeas was the king that